Welcome, everybody. We are in another episode of Questioning Gurus by QuestionPro, discussing experiences in Australia with cross-industry leaders. This is a podcast series dedicated to uncovering the latest insights and strategies shaping our economy, guided by the motto, make the workforce be with you. Each episode features experts' views that do not necessarily represent the views of their organizations. We cover real-world case studies and practical tips to help leaders, professionals, and companies enhance engagement, culture, and well-being by empowering and inspiring their teams. Perfect for curious people and business leaders and HR directors. On today's episode, we got our regular Jason Ajai from Interview Fit.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. We got Noa Rein from Career Science.
Hello.
And we got Emma Egan from People and Purpose. On today's episode is anchoring people and purpose in Australia. So Noa, will you take us, please, into this journey of an episode and then drive us through how we can actually make it happening in Australia for those leaders?
Excitement. So all the curious people and the HR directors, because it can be the same person.
Yeah, they can.
This is a special treat. So we've got Emma. Good morning. Hello. Emma and I met many a yonkers ago in the Quest. I think I came to hear one of your podcasts.
Yes.
Like it was being recorded live, and then we stayed friends forever and ever. And Emma has always been for me a beacon. You're a beacon because you're traversing kind of the space of running a really successful business, but absolutely anchored in purpose. And then you've gone and called your business that. That is just alignment. And I do believe that today is your 8th birthday. Is that right? So not yours, but the business. So maybe, first of all, welcome and thank you for joining us and coming to share your wisdom, but also maybe take us through who's having an 8th birthday today.
Yeah. So I've been in HR recruitment now since 2005. So yeah, but I'm only 20.
Three, 4 years ago. 3-4 years ago. Yep.
Recruitment for 23 years. So I've been around the traps and obviously met a lot of people on the way. And one thing that's always been steady for me is integrity in the whole process. So dealing with clients, dealing with candidates, and making sure that we are representing people the way that they should be represented, giving them a voice when they don't have a voice, or being able to work with organizations that are doing really good things but don't have the platform to be able to tell their story.
Yep.
And so throughout that process, I was working for a couple of big corporates over that time and obviously learned a lot and don't have bad things to say about that because of what I learned. And then decided to move into my own space when I had my 3rd child and didn't want to go back and manage a huge team, but still loved doing recruitment. And so that's how I went into my own business, but it was under another group. And then we rebranded in the last year to People and Purpose because it encompasses what we stand for. So that theme of integrity and making sure that organizations that want to have a voice, but then also candidates or people looking for a change in their career. So that encompasses that, and we are about making sure that we represent not just the people looking for work, but the organizations in the light that they need to be represented. So everybody has grey areas. Everybody has, there is no perfect organization.
Yeah.
There is no perfect person looking for a job, but it's being able to match those accurately and people know what they're walking into, or organizations will get feedback from us on, where they can improve or what we see or the feedback that we get. So it's not just about putting someone into a job, where I know that for some recruiters it can be that, and that's where we want to.
Is that true?
Yeah.
There are some recruiters who just.
I heard a story last week.
Wow.
And I'm like,
Do you want to share?
Come on.
No.
Yeah, come on. Yeah,
You can share that.
You've opened the door now.
I had a phone call and he's just like checking in. It's another recruiter, and he said, "I'm just checking in. I'm seeing how you're going. Love to catch up for a Christmas drink before Christmas, blah, blah, blah." And he said, "I'm going out for lunch with so-and-so tomorrow." And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. It's another recruiter. And he goes, yeah, I passed him a job. He goes, I knew you wouldn't take it because the environment's really toxic. Well,
You're
I'm
aligning the
glad.
times,
Yeah.
right?
I'm glad. So anyway, he placed the role and the guy was taking him out for lunch. But
Wow.
that stuff happens. Like,
All the time,
So-
unfortunately.
So here's my experience. So I'm not in recruitment. So I experienced recruitment both as a head of HR and as a candidate, right? And one of the things I've been watching as you work, right, is both the strong business acumen, like you have this really strong business acumen, but also you will not stand away or step back from values, complexity of conversations. You also don't do it in a high conflict way. So you don't go, hey, you're toxic. Go and sit in the toxic seat. And that's been really interesting for me to watch because that's the kind of business world I'd like to see. So there's not a dog eat dog world, or it's a war out there, right? Like all that environment that we've created, like business must be.
Yeah.
You've shown me that that's possible. Do you want us to talk through that experience of being a business owner, wanting to do a great job, having mouths to feed, but also being strong in your values?
I really believe that everybody rises with the tide. Like that's
Okay.
always been my philosophy, because we do a good job, and like there's competition, but that's okay, because as a business owner, if you're doing and you're living by your values and your integrity and your principles, and as a person, the people around you, the right people around you, will come on that journey.
Yeah.
The wrong people will fall away, and that's good. That's okay. Like it's it's the tide.
So it sounds like with this anchoring you have, like you're anchoring in good business practices, but also there's enough. Like, yes, I'd like more, because that means more mouths to, like you can do more good, but there's enough. There's a sense of there's enough for everyone. And if you want to do that, you do that. I will be doing this.
Yeah.
Is that how you run?
Yeah, the philosophy, like Bianca and I have done a lot of work this year through the rebranding and the work that we've been on. And there are a lot of different avenues that we could take in terms of like business and competition and expanding. But we've gotten to the end of the year and even had a discussion yesterday. It was like, we're going to stay in our lane. Like we love what we do, and we love working with good human beings and that human resources profession. And there's a lot of human resources people that are doing a fantastic job at bringing the human to work again, because in the industrial revolution, or the revolution that we're in with AI, it's important that that human is represented and looked after. So well-being, psychosocial risk, all of those aspects. And so we've just said, we're staying in our lane. We love what we do. We don't need 50 employees to do that. Like, we have amazing families that we can spend time with. We have the privilege of dropping our kids to school and picking them up and being there for their sport and like everything. And like when you get to my age, 25, you realize that's the stuff that matters. Like like the other stuff can go away. Like, why break yourself trying to make $10 million? It's not worth it.
So I know of two initiatives, because you straddle both candidate experience and the business, like represent the businesses.
Yes.
And one of the things that Adam Grant talks about is, in his book Givers and Takers, is that givers are both the most successful business people and the least successful business people. And you have to read the book to know who. But you have a sense of giving for both. Right, so I'm part of the business part that you've done. You've got. So do you want to maybe give us examples of two of the I call them generosity spaces. I know that that's not what you call them, that you do for heads of HR or the business part, and for the candidate part.
Yeah. So with the business part, we run podcasts. We have a ton of resources that HR professionals can tap into. We have a community circle where we have resources. We host our podcasts. We also bring people together so that they can actually ask each other questions if they want to. Then what else do we have? The podcast, webinars. networking groups.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah, like that's the business side.
So can I ask about that before you go to the candidate side? There was some really deep thinking around that, around the needs that we have as heads of HR or business leaders. And I was part of that thinking, so I was very grateful. Do you want to tell us a little bit of why you've decided on those things? Like what are you seeing that there's a need for community? And
HR people work across the whole business. And what we find is that it's very easy to get burnt out in HR because of, there's so many different reasons, but then changing legislation around industrial relations and employee relations, psychosocial risk, managing people strategy, talent attraction, talent engagement, like that whole onboarding process. And whenever something goes wrong with the culture, it's really easy for the executive to turn around and say, well, that's HR's job. And it's not. Like there's a lot on their shoulders. So having resources to tap in to other people to talk to and understand that they're not alone was really important to us.
So Emma, to that question then, in Australia, what is the average tenure of a HR director in an organization that before they get to the burnout sort of next step challenge?
That's hard to say because there's a lot of different aspects that would come into that. Like it depends on, what their team looks like, the structure. So that's pretty hard to say. But if you look at tenure, like even for a CEO, right, it's 3 to 5 years. HR director, depending on the organization, it probably would be the same. I was talking to someone yesterday, and I'll see if I can get the data, but actually, I know who I was talking to. She's coming to our network group next week, but she's been doing a lot of research around the tenure of, actually, I think it was Gen Z and the next generation coming into the workforce. And it's going to be 2 years. And these people coming into the workforce have double degrees. They're really highly educated, obviously, with double degrees. And then want to spend, say, 2 years at a job before they move on. And then in that job, they want to be developed constantly. They want the flexibility. They want. And so you've got all of this coming through as well. So I can see that tenure dropping unless you can, in an organization, offer career progression and that variety within there. So you could have a HR person, say, stay for 6 years, but they would have been in 3 different roles.
Yeah.
And so then do you think that then the importance of HR actually start rising because they actually raising that flag on purpose?
100%.
Right? That branding is really important, but purpose is the one that actually holds and it stays for long.
Yeah, because it's interesting because there've been some research around perceived great places to work. And so you got that perception. So on the street, they'll call out the big brands. Oh, that looks amazing. I really want to work there. But then they get into the organization and it's not the same as what they thought it was going to be. And their recruitment process was terrible. The onboarding was terrible. There's no development. The leadership aren't capable of having difficult conversations. It's no feedback, all the rest of it, right? And so HR have not a responsibility, but obviously a mandate to make sure that process from I see that business and I want to work there to I'm leaving the business, to make sure that process is amazing along the way with the support of the ELT.
Yeah.
I think the elevation part of the CX and the EX being aligned is a phenomenal leverage, right? Like a lever to pull. I have to say from personal experience, when I worked at Koala for a few years, and when I did my leaving speech, when I said, I actually met Koala as a customer.
Yeah.
So that was my first meeting with them. And I did apologize to the designers because the reason I wanted the mattress was it was blue. So I gave my apologies because there's much more work in that. But I have to say that alignment existed in the customer experience. I met the same alignment in the employee onboarding experience, right? And then within the experience and then the offboarding. So it is doable, and it doesn't have to be, my experience is you don't have to have $1 squillion behind it. It's a mindset and a choice, right? There's a organizational choice to be conscious and and mindful about the
Yeah.
practices. And it's not an investment of huge amounts of money, but it is effortful thinking. So every
Yeah.
time there's a misalignment, you go and fix it. And so during COVID, there was a different experience, and the recruiters actually upped the relationship, knowing that people are in such adversity. So there's this kind of constant massaging of the process with genuine intent. And I think that's what you're describing in your
Exactly.
community creation. One last question. So one of the things recently I've been doing some work on networking, right? So people, anyone out there who has just gone yuck in their experience, right? There's a real yuckness to networking because it feels like a give take, like I need something from you, so it's not authentic. And so I went to look into it because it didn't make any sense, because it does make sense, but also I have all these other experiences like the ones that you do with your community circles that is not yuck. So I'm like, what is going on? And one of the things that I came across is the idea of social capital. And social capital is not about, can I get something from Jason? But it's like, let me meet humans, because I need humans. Sometimes I need chicken soup from someone watches my dog, someone has an idea that I never thought of. And so instead of kind of honing into the narrow, which I think often happens in businesses, there's kind of a social capital approach.
Yeah.
And that's my sense from the way you're conducting your business. It's like, let's expand for no good reason other than humans need communities.
Yeah.
Now let's go back. So we've talked about the business. You do communities for the candidates, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want to tell us about that?
And we also, again, it's the same like with HR, like your candidates, your clients, such like you're a customer and then move into an organization, right? So there are a lot of resources for people looking for work. So different ways to look at your resume and things like that. We're doing a webinar. We do webinars around mindset, what you need to start thinking of before you even start looking for another role, and how you approach that process. And then, the community circles as well. So they're invited into that, not just businesses, but then, the candidates are invited into those circles too.
And it's quite an open invitation, right? Like
Yeah.
you do,
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's welcome. And then the podcast and the information, because a lot of people that we do get on podcasts are senior HR leaders. And then we also have in the works next year, we're going to be running a series of HR experts doing courses for people. So around difficult conversations, employee relations, those types of things, because you've got SMEs that have these little HR teams. When do you ever get to tap into a CPO?
Yeah.
When do you ever get to tap into a consultant? And getting a consultant in can cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So if your managers can go and do one of these courses, it's gold.
So it's like a generosity to give access, and then you do with it as you.
Yeah, they can access it.
Yeah, that's really
they
cool.
want. It's not.
So now I have a question to both of you humans. So you've both done a lot of work with candidates that are seeking roles, and it's gotten quite hairy. Some environments have gotten quite hairy. I want to say recently, but it's now embedded in the reality.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. In the reality of today, and assuming I want a job because I need to feed humans or myself. But I want to stay positive. I want to still do purpose. I want to give, but I also want to not, let go of all my alignment and anchors. Suggestions?
I think you need to. So one of the things that I'm seeing a lot with the job seekers I'm working with is, yes, candidate experience for them has been really poor in this past 18 months, 2 years.
Yeah.
And people are hurting. I posted something on LinkedIn the other day. I was working with somebody recently who came to me in a conversation about a month ago. He said, Jason, I'm really struggling. I've been out of work for 5 months.
Yeah.
It's knocked my confidence. I can't pay my bills. I'm running out of money. I need a job, and I need it now. But this experience has really knocked my belief in myself. Mm-hmm. And so we did some work on, first and foremost, helping him work out what his pitch was. How do you describe yourself in an interview? When you're asked, talk about your experience or talk about your background, what do you say? Most people go to pieces. Even senior HR people, talent acquisition people, go to pieces. They can't structure it. What I've found is that by helping him and by helping others build that in itself gives them some confidence, re-energizes their belief in themselves, and they're able to actually go, okay, no, actually, I am really good at what I do. I've done some incredible things, and so
it's kind of bringing to the forefront the information that exists in me, but has disappeared because all the
all the stuff
like
that's
avalanche
going
of
on.
negativity that I'm experiencing.
So I found that by helping people first and foremost crack that nut, that starts to help them, set the compass for where they want to go. Reinstill that belief, that confidence, and then you go to values. What's important to you? What are the non-negotiables as far as work is considered?
So you found that
hugely
impactful.
Important, hugely impactful.
What
When
about
we come across people like that, the first thing I suggest to them is go and book 3 coffees with managers that you loved working with. Ask them for feedback. What did you do really well? What could you have improved on? Why did you work so well together? And that helps them bring their pitch together too. And it's just like, it's such a, and they walk away, they call and they go, I've forgotten about that. It was amazing. And I love seeing them. And then sometimes they get a job.
Yeah.
Because they're reconnecting with their previous network.
That's genius.
It's like, how does anyone know that you're looking for work unless you're telling them? Like it's like a brand. Like if you're not marketing, no one knows who you are.
And the other thing that and maybe this is more of a question. So one of the things we know in the work that we're doing in careers is that these knockbacks, right? Like they're knocked off the path. They hurt, but also, and this is disappointing, they're part of career. So they're and they're going to be more because we see more change, right? And so this doesn't help you pay the bills, but knowing that disruption is a feature, not a bug, means that we respond to it differently. So it's still a problem. We still need to do everything that you guys have suggested, but also not look at it as if something is wrong with me, right? So it's still a problem, but nothing is wrong with you. This is one of the impacts of hugely high change environments. And so we're here, not just us, but there are people around you that are experiencing this. There are people around you that have a generosity to give. And so maybe that also helps. Anything else that you recommend? Like you guys are in the thick of it now. So any that you've seen that has helped candidates that
With the job searching process?
Job searching in this environment, right?
Yeah, and I think when you are facing those knockbacks, like the pitch helps, and talking to previous network and other people, but then also be really careful with how you're answering questions in an interview.
Yeah.
Because when you are at that space, and I totally get it, when you've been looking for work that long, you've got 80 rejections, whatever, it's really hard to be positive in an interview. But no one wants to employ a negative mindset.
Okay.
And that's really hard to mask when you're actually going for interviews. So being able to tap into meditation. You have to meditate. If you're going through this, you have to calm your brain down. You have to calm your nervous system down. And especially if you're going for interviews, and to get you in that mind state beforehand, because being able to swing things positively is really important.
Yeah.
And one conversation that we've been having with people recently is really interesting, maybe because we're coming out of COVID, is presentation. Make sure you present it well.
Shower.
It's just like, I can't believe I'm having these conversations again, because you're not dealing with junior people, but presentation matters, because no matter what, people are going to make an impression of you within the first 10 seconds, because we're human beings.
Yeah.
And that's not going to change.
And before we close up and to our listeners, us as leaders in organizations, then we are a reflection of the community as a whole. So as well, like the candidates that, look for the appearance and how they just present, as well for leaders, how often do you see the organizations actually run the candidate interview feedback and run it back to them? And because there's an overload, right? Like because of the volume that they're getting, are the teams ready and equipped with the technology to give that feedback back to help the community? Because we are responsible for that, right? The community is a reflection of the organizations that we do. For what Noa was saying, we all need to pay the bills at home. and all of that is coming from work, right? So is there that network? And before we wrap up and
So
we
you're
close?
asking if organisations themselves are giving feedback to candidates?
Back to
Yes, back to
No.
candidates.
There's some candidates who are going through full interview process 4 or 5, and sometimes they're getting ghosted at the end of it.
Ghosting is interesting, right? Like
Yes.
this feature now.
It's like, how did that happen? You've invested 6 hours of your life in an interview process, and then there's no answer.
Yeah, that's the
So there's no
transaction.
tangible feedback.
So
Just
It's
on this,
sporadic.
so the 6 hours, yes, that's 6 hours presently physically
Yeah.
being in front of another
Not
person,
the thinking.
plus the other 6 hours that I've spent preparing, getting to an interview, doing my hair, although I have none, makeup, those kinds of things. Those are all really important. One of the observations that I've had in this past period in what I've been doing is that organizations, managers aren't equipped to have conversations. People don't have conversations anymore. Ghosting is easier than saying to somebody, hey, look, I'm sorry, you're not right because you didn't really align to our values, or your skills don't really meet the skills that we need, or your growth mindset, your learning agility abilities don't really have you're not really strong enough to go from where you are now to where we need you to be in 12 months' time.
But this is what you did well. And like being able to, yeah.
Absolutely. And so I think that people are avoiding it because they're not equipped, and they should be.
Yeah.
Organizations should be training their hiring managers on how to give feedback to candidates. It's super, super important. Not just for your brand, but for the human being. But they're just not. They're not equipped. They don't have the time. They don't know how to have a conversation.
So my question is, do we not have the time? Because we're all time poor. So let's start with we're time poor before we've left our beds, right? Like we all feel the time poorness. But this comes back to anchoring, right? So when I was leading HR teams, we had a rule, and it has to be simple because you can't do complicated rules when you're moving fast. It's if someone has heard my voice during the candidacy experience, they will hear my voice at the end of it. So if you haven't passed the phone interview, you will hear my voice when I say that you haven't passed. If you've done the whole 6 hours, you will see my face and hear my voice. So the equivalent of what you've gone through is the equivalent of what the end conversation will be.
Yeah.
Because one, it makes good business. But beyond that, that is an alignment to human experience. So before all of this wonderful technology that we have, we just spoke to each other. And so if we met, we shook hands, we did all these things. That is the need that we have. So we wanted to design it into the process with a simple rule. And I'll end with crazy is not the right word, with a unique story that shows that we still anchored in it. So we had in one of the businesses, we had an employee who had left the business. The recruiter then put an ad up after the employee had left the business, put the ad up for that role. And the first person who applied was the person who had left the role. And the recruiter was like, I don't have to respond to this, right? And I said, what's our rule? And she looked at me, she said, if they've heard our voice, they need to hear our voice. I'll go call. And she went and called, and it was an uncomfortable, but that was in line. So we applied it always. We didn't apply it only when it kind of made business sense. It's just human sense.
So just to for listeners and wrapping up and closing in a positive note is let's raise sort of that experience in the community across the board as leaders and candidates. Emma, to our listeners, how can they get in contact with you?
Well, I'm everywhere. LinkedIn, Emma Egan, also People and Purpose, and connect with us there. It's probably the best way to do it, actually. All of my contact details are on there. So if you want to get through,
And
but
you
we're
do
on
your
Instagram,
HR update that I
Facebook.
love. What's
Yes.
that called? You told me and I forgot. That HR, the weekly thing where you sit in
weekly
your
roundup.
room.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
updates on what happened
Yeah,
this week in HR.
exactly.
It's very, very useful.
Yeah,
Perfect.
it is.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Emma, for
you.
coming and then being one of our gurus. Thank you very much to Jason and
Pleasure.
Noa for that wonderful sort of in-depth that you bring to the table. For listeners, please reach out to Jason, Emma, or Noa at any particular point. And that is a wrap. Thank you very much. This is Questioning Gurus. Make the workforce be with you.